When Pearl Winters hung the final sale, "Everything Must Go" sign in the window of the reading corner, she had no idea her small bookstore was about to catch the attention of an NBA legend. Welcome to another heartwarming true story, everyone. Don't forget to comment where you're watching from today. The morning sun filtered through the dusty windows of the bookstore, casting warm rectangles of light across shelves that had held countless stories for over 4 decades. The reading corner wasn't just any bookstore. It was a cornerstone of South Central Los Angeles, a haven where generations of children had discovered the magic of reading and where dreams had taken flight between well-worn pages. Pearl moved slowly between the familiar aisles, her arthritis more noticeable these days but her spirit still strong. Each book she touched held memories, story times for wide-eyed children, late-night poetry readings, impromptu homework help sessions that had changed young lives. The wooden shelves, slightly worn but still sturdy, had witnessed countless moments of discovery and inspiration. Aurora Winters, Pearl's daughter, watched her mother with growing concern. They had tried everything to keep the store open: crowdfunding, community events, even mortgaging Aurora's house. But the reality of rising rents and changing times had finally caught up with them. Dominic Frost, the building's new owner, had made it clear they had 1 month to vacate. 12-year-old Zion Blackwood sat in his usual corner, surrounded by books about basketball and science fiction. He had been coming to the reading corner every day after school for the past 3 years, ever since his mother started working double shifts at the hospital. Pearl had never charged him for staying late, understanding that some things were more important than money. "Miss Pearl," Zion called out, his voice carrying that mix of youth and old soul wisdom that Pearl had come to love. "Why don't we try making videos about the store? My friend says everything goes viral these days." His optimism, despite knowing about the impending closure, made Pearl's heart ache. Sage Bennett, the local elementary school teacher who had been bringing her classes to the store for years, stood near the poetry section, quietly wiping away tears. Her students had learned more than just reading here. They had learned about community, about the power of stories to change lives. The morning light caught the faded photographs on the wall behind the counter. They told the story of the reading corner through the decades: Pearl's parents opening the store in 1980, celebrity author visits, community events, and countless children sprawled on the reading room. Among them was a yellowing newspaper clipping about a young basketball player who used to study here during the late 1970s. Thaddeus Quinn, who had been coming to the store since it opened, shuffled in with his walking cane. At 85, he still came every Tuesday to read poetry to anyone who would listen. His face fell when he saw the sale sign. "No, Pearl," he said softly, "this place is too important to lose." Coach Xavier Rivers, who ran the youth basketball program at the local community center, paused outside the window. He remembered how this store had been a sanctuary during his own childhood, how Pearl's mother had helped him with his college applications. Now he watched Zion, one of his most promising players, sitting among the books just as he once had. The morning wore on, and more regulars trickled in, each reacting to the sale sign with disbelief and sadness. Pearl maintained her composure, but every expression of grief felt like a physical blow. This wasn't just about losing a business, it was about losing a community hub, a safe space, a source of inspiration for countless young minds. Aurora worked the register, handling not just purchases but the steady stream of memories and condolences from customers. Many shared stories about how the reading corner had impacted their lives. First books purchased, homework completed, friendships formed, dreams inspired. "Remember when that famous author came?" one elderly customer reminisced. And Pearl's mother made sure every child got their book signed, even if they couldn't afford to buy one. The stories flowed like a river of shared history, each one underlining what the community was about to lose. Zion had moved to the basketball biography section, his fingers tracing the spines of books about his heroes. He paused at one about Magic Johnson, remembering how Pearl had told him about the NBA star's connection to the store. "Miss Pearl," he called out, "is it true Magic Johnson used to study here?" Pearl smiled, moving to join him. "Yes, indeed. Back when he was just Irvin, before all the fame. He would sit right where you are now, reading about basketball and business." She didn't mention how she had often slipped him extra books, seeing the hunger for knowledge in his eyes. The afternoon's sun shifted, creating new patterns on the worn carpet. A young mother came in with 3 children, all of them regular participants in Saturday morning story time. The youngest burst into tears upon hearing about the closure, and Pearl found herself fighting back her own emotions. Coach Rivers stepped inside, his presence commanding but gentle. "Pearl," he said, his voice carrying years of respect, "have you reached out to any of the success stories? The people who got their start here?" His eyes drifted to the wall of photographs, to the faces of those who had gone on to become doctors, lawyers, teachers, and more. "This place isn't just a bookstore," he continued, watching Zion absorbed in his reading. "It's an incubator for dreams. Someone needs to tell that story." He pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts with a thoughtful expression. As we approach the turning point in this story, consider how many lives are shaped by these seemingly ordinary places, these havens of learning and growth that often go unnoticed until they're threatened. Share your thoughts in the comments below. The next chapter will reveal how Magic Johnson discovered the impending closure of his childhood sanctuary, setting in motion a chain of events that would impact not just the reading corner, but the entire community. But for now, Pearl continued arranging books for the sale, Aurora fielded calls from concerned customers, and Zion read about the very man who was about to change everything. What they didn't know yet was that Coach Rivers had already sent a message to an old friend, attaching a photo of the sale sign and a simple note. "Remember where you used to study? The place that helped shape your dreams? It needs your help now." The message was making its way to Magic Johnson's phone, about to trigger a response that would leave everyone speechless. Welcome back to our unfolding story at the Reading Corner, where the afternoon sun now cast long shadows through the dusty windows. If you're just joining us, don't forget to comment where you're watching from today. The message Coach Xavier Rivers sent about the store's closure reached Magic Johnson during a business meeting in downtown Los Angeles. The NBA legend's expression changed as he looked at the attached photo of the final sale sign hanging in the window of the place where he had spent countless hours as a young man, dreaming of his future while surrounded by books. Pearl Winters was reorganizing the business section when she heard the bell above the door chime. Without looking up, she called out her usual greeting, but the response made her freeze. "Miss Pearl," a familiar voice said, "please tell me I'm not too late." She turned to find Magic Johnson himself filling the doorway, his presence both commanding and gentle. For a moment, Pearl couldn't speak. The last time she'd seen him in person was nearly 15 years ago, when he'd stopped by during a community event. But now here he stood, wearing an impeccable business suit, his expression a mixture of concern and determination. Zion Blackwood, still in his usual corner with a stack of books, dropped the biography he was holding. The young boy's eyes widened as he recognized the basketball legend who had dominated so many of his reading choices. Coach Rivers, who had been discussing fundraising possibilities with Aurora, smiled knowingly. "Irvin," Pearl finally managed, using his given name as she had when he was just a teenager studying for his future. "I didn't expect." She gestured helplessly at the sale signs and half-empty shelves. Magic moved forward, enveloping her in a warm embrace that spoke of decades of gratitude and respect. "This place," he said, looking around at the familiar shelves, "this is where it all started for me. Not just the basketball dreams, but the business ones too." He ran his hand along a shelf, pausing at the section where he used to sit. "Right here, this is where your mother first showed me a book about business principles. Said I needed to be smart about success before I found it." Aurora watched as her mother's eyes filled with tears. She had grown up hearing stories about the young Irvin Johnson, about how he would help shelve books in exchange for extra reading time, about how Pearl's mother had recognized something special in him beyond his athletic talents. "The landlord," Pearl began, but Magic held up his hand, a familiar smile spreading across his face. "Miss Pearl, that's why I'm here. I saw Coach Rivers' message and came straight from a meeting with my investment team." He paused, his expression growing serious. "But before we talk business, I want to hear everything. Tell me what's been happening." Over the next hour, as the afternoon light shifted through the windows, Pearl and Aurora explained the store's situation. They told him about the rising rents, the competition from online retailers, the struggle to modernize while maintaining the store's character. Magic listened intently, occasionally nodding or asking pointed questions that revealed his business acumen. Thaddeus Quinn, who had remained quietly observing from his usual chair, suddenly spoke up. "This young man," he said, his voice carrying the weight of decades, "used to read poetry with me during his study breaks. Said it helped him think differently about the game." Magic's face lit up with recognition. "Mr. Quinn, you're still here, still sharing the power of words." The elderly man nodded, gesturing to Zion. "Still finding young minds to nurture, just like Pearl and her mother did for you." Magic turned to look at the boy, seeing something of his younger self in Zion's eager expression. "Come here, young man," he called. "Tell me what you're reading today." Zion approached shyly, clutching a book about business strategies in sports. Magic's eyebrows rose as he read the title. "Starting early, I see. Just like I did." He took the book, flipping through its pages with familiar ease. "You know, everything I learned about business started right here in this store. Pearl and her mother taught me that success isn't just about talent, it's about knowledge, preparation, and understanding how things work." Sage Bennett, who had been quietly grading papers in the poetry section, approached with purpose. "Mr. Johnson," she said, "my students still read about you. Not just about basketball, but about how you transformed yourself into a successful businessman. This store, it's doing for them what it did for you, showing them possibilities beyond their current circumstances." Magic nodded thoughtfully, his gaze sweeping across the store again, taking in the reading nooks, the carefully curated sections, the wall of community photos. "Miss Pearl," he said finally, "I didn't just come here to reminisce. I came with a proposal." The store fell silent. Even Zion, usually full of questions, held his breath. Pearl straightened in her chair, years of business experience evident in her posture despite her age. "What kind of proposal, Irvin?" she asked, using his given name again, reminding him of their shared history. "A partnership," he replied, his smile widening. "But not just any partnership. I want to help you transform the Reading Corner into something that honors its past while securing its future." He pulled out his phone, showing them preliminary sketches his team had already prepared. A community learning center with a modernized bookstore at its heart. Technology, tutoring spaces, a business incubator for young entrepreneurs, but all built around the soul of what this place has always been. As we prepare to enter the next chapter of this extraordinary story, consider how often our past investments in others return to us in unexpected ways. Share your thoughts in the comments below about a place or person who helped shape your dreams. The next chapter will reveal the details of Magic Johnson's innovative plan to save the Reading Corner, and how his vision would expand far beyond just preserving a bookstore. But for now, hope had returned to the familiar space. Pearl wiped away tears of joy, Aurora hugged her mother tightly, and Zion looked at his basketball hero with new understanding, seeing not just an athlete, but a man who had never forgotten where his dreams began. What they didn't know yet was that Magic's plan would involve more than just financial investment. He had already begun making calls to other successful professionals who had found inspiration within these walls, setting in motion a community revival that would exceed everyone's expectations. As we return to the Reading Corner, where Magic Johnson's unexpected visit had transformed an afternoon of farewells into one of possibilities, the energy in the store had shifted dramatically. If you're just joining us now, make sure to comment where you're watching from today. Magic's team arrived within the hour, transforming the quiet bookstore into a hub of purposeful activity. Architects with tablets moved through the space, scanning and measuring, while business analysts huddled over laptops at the reading tables. But it was the arrival of Dominic Frost, the building's owner, that brought a tense silence to the room. The property developer stopped short when he recognized Magic Johnson standing beside Pearl's counter. His rehearsed speech about market realities and property values died on his lips as the NBA legend stepped forward, extending his hand with a warm but determined smile. "Mr. Frost," Magic said, his voice carrying the authority of decades of successful business negotiations, "I believe we need to have a conversation about the future of this building." He gestured to the preliminary plans his team had already drawn up. "And I think you'll find our proposal very interesting." What followed was a masterclass in business negotiation, but with a heart. Magic didn't just present numbers and projections, he shared stories. He told Frost about studying business books in the very spot where they stood, about Pearl's mother helping him understand complex concepts, about how this store had shaped not just his athletic career but his business acumen. "This isn't just about preserving a bookstore," Magic explained, his passion evident in every word. "It's about creating a model for community-based educational and business development, something that could be replicated across the country." His vision began to unfold through digital renderings and detailed plans. The first floor would remain a bookstore, but modernized with technology integration and expanded sections for business, technology, and educational resources. The second floor, currently used for storage, would be transformed into a learning center with tutoring spaces, computer labs, and areas for workshops and seminars. Pearl watched in amazement as Magic detailed plans for a small cafe space that would provide job training for local youth. Aurora's eyes filled with tears when he explained how the store's historic reading nook, where she had spent countless childhood hours, would be preserved and enhanced as a children's storytime area. Zion, who had been quietly absorbing everything, suddenly spoke up. "But what about the basketball books?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. Magic's laugh filled the store. "Young man, we're going to have a special sports and leadership section. Because sometimes the best business lessons come from understanding teamwork and perseverance." Sage Bennett, who had remained to witness this transformation, stepped forward with a teacher's practical concern. "What about accessibility? Many of our families can't afford new books." Magic's response revealed how deeply he understood the community's needs. "We're creating a membership program," he explained. "Families can earn points through community service, academic achievement, or participating in store programs. Those points can be used for books and tutoring services." He turned to Pearl. "Because that's what you and your mother always did, found ways to make sure everyone had access to learning." Thaddeus Quinn, listening from his usual chair, nodded in approval. "You learned well, young Irvin," he said softly. "You learned that success means nothing if you don't lift others as you rise." Magic paused in his presentation, acknowledging the wisdom with respectful silence. Coach Rivers, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. "The basketball program at the community center," he began, but Magic was already nodding. "We'll have a permanent partnership with the new learning center. Because sports without education is a dead end, and education without dreams is just information." As the afternoon progressed, more details emerged. Magic's team had already reached out to successful professionals who had roots in the community. Doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, people who remembered the reading corner as a sanctuary of learning in their youth. Many had immediately pledged support, not just financially but as mentors and speakers for future programs. Pearl, overwhelmed by the scope of the vision, found herself sitting in her familiar chair behind the counter. Magic noticed and came to kneel beside her, his expression softening. "Miss Pearl," he said gently, "your mother used to tell me that books were just the beginning, that real learning happens when knowledge meets opportunity. That's what we're building here." Dominic Frost, who had been silently reviewing the proposals, finally spoke. "This is impressive," he admitted. "But the numbers need to work." Magic's smile widened as he presented the financial projections. The development would actually increase the property's value while creating sustainable community impact. "Mr. Frost," Magic said, "I'm offering you a chance to be part of something revolutionary. A model that combines business success with community development. Think about the legacy that carries." He could see the property developer's perspective shifting, the possibilities expanding beyond simple profit margins. Aurora, who had been taking notes throughout the presentation, suddenly realized something. "The old storage room upstairs," she said excitedly, "the one with Mom's teaching materials from when she was a professor, it would be perfect for the business incubator space." Magic's team immediately began incorporating her suggestions into their plans. As we prepare to enter the final chapter of this extraordinary story, Consider how often the seeds of knowledge we plant return as forests of opportunity. Share your thoughts in the comments below about a time when education changed your life's trajectory. The next chapter will reveal how Magic Johnson's vision for the Reading Corner would grow beyond anyone's expectations, creating ripples of change throughout the community and beyond. But for now, the old bookstore hummed with new energy. Pearl watched her lifetime of work being transformed into something even more meaningful. Aurora began imagining the possibilities for a new generation of readers, and Zion looked at his beloved basketball books with fresh understanding, seeing them not just as stories of sports, but as manuals for success. What they didn't know yet was that Magic's plan had caught the attention of national media and business leaders. The story of a basketball legend saving his childhood bookstore was about to become something much bigger, a blueprint for combining business success with community empowerment. Welcome back to the conclusion of our remarkable story. If you're just joining us now, don't forget to comment where you're watching from today, as we witness how one NBA legend's gratitude transformed not just a bookstore, but an entire community's future. 6 months after Magic Johnson's visit to the Reading Corner, the transformation was complete. The morning sun now streamed through spotless windows, illuminating a space that honored its past while embracing the future. The familiar wooden shelves had been carefully restored, their rich patina preserved while new lighting made every title easy to read. Pearl Winters stood behind a sleek new counter that had been carefully designed to incorporate pieces of the original. Her mother's old cash register, now purely decorative, held a place of honor beside the modern point-of-sale system. But it was the wall behind her that truly captured the store's journey, a carefully curated collection of photographs showing the Reading Corner's evolution from 1980 to the present. "Can you believe it?" Aurora whispered, watching as her mother prepared for the grand reopening. "It's everything we dreamed of, but better." The renovation had managed to maintain the store's cozy atmosphere while incorporating state-of-the-art technology and expanded spaces for learning and community gathering. The second floor, once cluttered with storage, had become a modern learning center. Computer stations lined one wall, each loaded with educational software and digital resources. Study rooms, named after successful community members who had found inspiration at the Reading Corner, provided spaces for tutoring and small group discussions. Thaddeus Quinn's Poetry Corner had been specially designed with comfortable seating and perfect acoustics for readings. The elderly man's eyes had filled with tears when he saw the plaque dedicating the space to "those who teach us to hear the music in words." He now had a regular schedule of poetry readings, with local students often joining him to share their own verses. Sage Bennett had already brought her first class to tour the renovated space. The children's area, with its magical reading nook designed to look like a treehouse, had drawn gasps of wonder from her students. Interactive screens allowed young readers to access digital content that complemented their physical books, bridging the gap between traditional reading and modern technology. But it was the new business center that truly showcased Magic's vision for the future. The space featured a rotating display of successful community members who had started their journeys at the Reading Corner. Their stories, accompanied by book recommendations that had inspired them, created a powerful narrative of possibility. Zion Blackwood had been given the honor of organizing the sports and leadership section. Under Magic's mentorship, the young boy had developed a system for categorizing books that connected athletic principles with business and life skills. His pride in the project had sparked a new interest in library science, adding another dream to his basketball aspirations. Coach Rivers stood in the doorway, remembering the text message that had started it all. He watched as his basketball players, including Zion, helped arrange the final displays for the grand reopening. The team had adopted the Reading Corner as their study hall, with mandatory reading sessions becoming as important as practice drills. The membership program had exceeded all expectations. Local businesses had joined in, offering internships and job opportunities to young people who demonstrated commitment to their education through the store's programs. The point system Magic had proposed had evolved into a community-wide initiative for promoting literacy and learning. At exactly 10 a.m., Magic Johnson arrived for the reopening ceremony. He wasn't alone. With him came several successful professionals who had once been regular customers at the Reading Corner. Doctors, lawyers, teachers, and entrepreneurs, all returning to pay tribute to the place that had nurtured their dreams. Dominic Frost, who had initially planned to convert the building into luxury retail space, had become one of the project's strongest advocates. The success of the Reading Corner's transformation had led him to rethink his approach to urban development, seeing how preserving community institutions could create both social and financial value. "Miss Pearl," Magic said, embracing her warmly, "are you ready to show everyone what a bookstore can really be?" His question carried the weight of months of planning, renovation, and reimagining what role a neighborhood bookstore could play in the modern world. The crowd gathered outside had grown beyond expectations. Local media mixed with national news crews, all drawn by the story of how an NBA legend had saved his childhood bookstore. But the real story, as Pearl knew, was about much more than preservation. It was about evolution and growth. When Magic cut the ribbon, the applause was thunderous. But it was his speech that captured the true significance of the moment. "This place," he began, gesturing to the beautifully renovated storefront, "this is where I learned that success isn't just about talent. It's about knowledge, about community, about lifting others as you rise." He went on to announce that the Reading Corner would serve as the pilot for a national initiative. His business team had already identified similar stores in other communities, places that could be transformed into centers of learning and opportunity. The model they had created here would be replicated across the country. Pearl's speech was shorter but equally powerful. "Books are just the beginning," she said, echoing her mother's words from so many years ago. "What we're really offering here is possibility. The possibility to dream, to learn, to grow, and to give back." The day was filled with moments that captured the store's unique spirit. Thaddeus Quinn held his first poetry reading in the new space, his voice strong and clear in the perfectly acoustic corner. Sage Bennett students presented a play they had written about the store's history, performed in the new community room. Zion proudly gave tours of the sports and leadership section, explaining his organization system to visitors with the confidence of a seasoned librarian. When asked about his future plans, he smiled and said, "I'm going to play in the NBA like Magic, but I'm also going to build something that helps others, just like he did." The cafe space, staffed by local youth in a job training program, served refreshments throughout the day. Each young worker wore a badge with their career goal listed underneath their name, a constant reminder that their current role was just one step on their journey. As evening approached, Pearl found a quiet moment to sit in her familiar chair behind the counter. The store hummed with activity, students in study groups upstairs, children discovering new books in the reading nook, entrepreneurs meeting in the business center. It was everything her mother had envisioned when she first opened the store, and more. Magic joined her, pulling up a chair just as he had done as a teenager. "You know," he said softly, "saving this place wasn't just about paying back a debt. It was about proving that success means nothing if you don't use it to create more success for others." 1 year later, the Reading Corner had become a model of community transformation. Literacy rates in the neighborhood had improved dramatically. The business incubator had launched several successful local enterprises. Most importantly, a new generation of dreamers had found their sanctuary among the books and programs. As we conclude this extraordinary story, take a moment to reflect on the places and people who shaped your own dreams. Have you had the opportunity to pay that forward? Share your stories in the comments below. Remember, as Magic Johnson demonstrated, true success isn't measured just in personal achievements, but in how many lives you touch along the way. The Reading Corner continues to write new chapters in countless life stories, proving that sometimes the most powerful investments we can make are in the dreams of others. Pearl still opens the store every morning, now helped by a new generation of young staff members. Aurora runs the expanded education programs, while Zion leads a youth advisory board that helps keep the store's offerings relevant to young readers. And Magic Johnson stops by regularly, often sitting quietly in his old spot, watching new dreams take shape among the shelves that once held his own.